The test was still in my hand. 2 pink lines. I was standing in my own bathroom, in my own house in Naperville, Illinois, shaking like it was 30 degrees outside instead of a warm September evening. And that's when I heard my husband's voice through the vent above our bedroom closet. Low. Careful. The kind of careful you only get when someone doesn't want to be heard. She doesn't even suspect anything. We just need 6 more months. Get through the holidays, get through the refinance, and then I file. And then my sister's voice answered him. 6 months, Danny, that's all. Then it's you, me, and this house. I stood there. Positive test in one hand, phone in the other. And in that moment, I stopped being the woman they thought I was. Mrs. Stark here, and today I'm telling you the story of the night everything I thought I knew about my life turned out to be a lie, and the 11 months that followed where I made sure the people who tried to take everything from me lost far more than they ever could have imagined. Stick around till the end, because the twist in this one, even my own lawyer didn't see it coming. My name is Rachel. I was 31 years old, married 4 years to a man named Daniel. Danny to everyone who loved him, which at the time included me completely. We had the house in Naperville, 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, an HOA that fined you $50 if your trash can stayed out past 6 p.m. We had the Golden Retriever, we had the Target run every Sunday, the Costco membership, the Starbucks order Danny had memorized, venti, oat milk, extra shot, no whip. We looked like the couple on the Christmas card, and for a long time, I believed we were. My sister, Lauren, was 2 years younger than me, prettier in that effortless way some people just are, funnier at parties, the one my mother always introduced first. I never resented her for it. I loved her. I trusted her with things I never told anyone else. She moved into our finished basement 18 months earlier after her divorce, rent-free, just until she gets back on her feet, Danny had said. I agreed without hesitation. Looking back now, I think that's where it started. Not with attraction, with proximity, with comfort, with 2 people who saw each other every single day while I was working 60-hour weeks trying to make partner at my firm downtown. That Tuesday, I'd left work early. I had a doctor's appointment I hadn't told anyone about yet, not even Danny. 3 weeks late, a feeling in my gut I couldn't shake. I bought the test at the Walgreens on Ogden Avenue on my way home, sat in my car in our driveway for 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. 2 pink lines. I remember pressing my hand flat against my stomach and just breathing, thinking about how I was going to tell Danny. Maybe wrap the test in tissue paper, maybe wait for the weekend, cook his favorite dinner, one of those cheesy Pinterest reveal ideas. I was standing in the bathroom off our bedroom, still holding the test, when I heard voices through the old vent that connected to the guest room below, the room Lauren used as her office. At first, I thought it was the TV. Then I heard my name. Rachel's going to be devastated. Not sad, not guilty, almost amused. She'll be fine, Danny answered. She's tough. She always lands on her feet. That's kind of the problem, actually. I stood completely still. My heart was doing something I didn't recognize. Not racing, exactly. Slowing down. Getting cold. Danny continued. The refinance closes in November. Once that goes through, the equity's locked in under both our names, clean. After the holidays, I'll tell her it's not working. No affair to point to, nothing messy, just growing apart. She'll take the settlement, we split it fair on paper, and you and I start fresh. Maybe look at that place in Scottsdale you liked. And the 401k? Lauren asked. Illinois splits marital assets. I've already talked to a guy at the office who went through this. If we time the divorce filing after my bonus vests in January, her half comes out of pre-bonus numbers. She'll never know the difference.
I want you to understand something about that moment. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just my sister. It was the math, the spreadsheet quality of it. My husband had built a financial exit strategy around my heartbreak the way other people plan a kitchen renovation. I looked down at the test in my hand, and something in me went very, very quiet.
I didn't scream, I didn't run downstairs, I didn't throw the test at his head, which, if I'm honest, is what every cell in my body wanted to do. Instead, I put the test in a Ziploc bag, tucked it into my purse, and walked downstairs like nothing had happened. I told Danny I had a headache and was going to bed early. He kissed my forehead, called me babe, asked if I wanted him to bring up some ginger ale. I said, no thank you. That night, lying next to the man who was already planning my exit interview from my own marriage, I made a decision. I was not going to be the devastated wife they were expecting. I was not going to cry or beg or confront him in some dramatic kitchen scene where he could act surprised and hurt and confused. I was going to be smarter than both of them combined. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead, I drove to a law office in downtown Chicago, not the firm I worked at, a different one entirely, one where nobody would recognize my name, and I sat across from a family law attorney named Patricia Nguyen. I told her everything: the pregnancy, the vent, the refinance, the 401k timing, the Scottsdale comment. Patricia set down her pen and looked at me for a long moment. Do you have any of this in writing? Texts? Emails? Anything? No, just what I heard. Then here's what we're going to do, she said. You're going to act exactly like nothing happened, and you're going to let me handle the rest. Over the next 6 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. Calm, pleasant. I made Danny's coffee. I laughed at his jokes at Sunday dinner, while Lauren sat across the table pretending everything was normal. But quietly, I was documenting everything. Patricia had explained that Illinois is what's called an equitable distribution state, not a 50-50 state. That means the court doesn't just split things down the middle, it looks at contribution, conduct, and circumstances. And there's something specific that matters a great deal: dissipation of marital assets. If a spouse spends money or plans to hide money in anticipation of a divorce they haven't disclosed, courts can absolutely factor that in. I started saving receipts, bank statements. I noticed Danny had opened a new account at a credit union 2 towns over, one we'd never used before. Small deposits, $200 here, $300 there, building a private cushion he thought I'd never find. I found it in about 4 days because I still had access to our joint credit monitoring app. He'd forgotten I set that up 2 years ago back when we were shopping for our mortgage together. I also confirmed the refinance. Danny had, in fact, submitted paperwork to lock in a lower rate, paperwork that would require my signature, which meant he was going to need me to sign something without understanding what it actually meant for asset division later. I did not sign it yet. Instead, I brought it straight to Patricia. "This is good," she said, reading through it. "Really good. If he's refinancing to lock equity before filing, and you can show he was already planning divorce at the time he asks you to sign, that supports a claim that he was acting in bad faith. Courts do not like that." We hosted Thanksgiving that year. Same as always, turkey from the Whole Foods on Route 59, my mother's green bean casserole recipe, pumpkin pie from Costco, because honestly, nobody makes it better. Lauren brought a bottle of wine and a smile that, now that I knew what I knew, looked almost predatory. At one point, over dessert, my mother asked when Danny and I were going to finally give her some grandbabies. I watched Danny's face, watched him force a laugh, avoid my eyes,
take a long sip of coffee. "We're working on it," he said. I smiled and said nothing, because by then I was 14 weeks along, and he had absolutely no idea. That night, after everyone left, Danny handed me the refinance paperwork again. "Just need your signature on the highlighted pages, babe. Rate's not gonna be this good again." I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd built a life with. A man who, in exactly 6 weeks by his own timeline, was planning to blindside me with divorce papers timed around his own bonus schedule. "Of course," I said. "Let me look it over first. You know me. I like to read everything." He kissed my head. That's my lawyer wife. If only he knew how right he was about to be. I didn't sign the refinance. Instead, Patricia and I built a different plan entirely. Here's what most people don't understand about divorce, especially when there's real money and real property involved. Timing is everything. Danny wanted to wait until after his January bonus vested, believing that would protect a bigger chunk of his compensation from being split. So we didn't wait. In the first week of December, I filed first. Not out of anger, out of strategy. Filing first in Illinois allows you to request temporary relief immediately, temporary use of the marital home, temporary support, and a freeze on major financial transactions, including refinances, which meant Danny's little refinance plan, the one meant to lock our equity into a clean split before he broke the news, dead in the water the moment the court order was signed. I also disclosed the pregnancy in the filing, 14 weeks verified by my OB. Danny found out he was going to be a father the same afternoon he was served divorce papers at his office in downtown Chicago in front of his entire team by a process server Patricia hired specifically to catch him during his 2 p.m. Tuesday's status meeting. I heard secondhand that he had to leave the conference room.
Lauren called me that night. I let it go to voicemail 4 times before I finally answered. "Rachel, what is wrong with you? You didn't even talk to him first? You just blindsided him at work." "That's interesting," I said, "considering he was planning to blindside me at Christmas after locking our home equity into a refinance you two discussed in my basement. Through my vent, Lauren. I heard everything." Silence on the other end, long enough that I could hear her breathing change. "I don't know what you think you heard." "I know exactly what I heard," I said. "The Scottsdale house, the 401k timing, the part where you said I'd be devastated and you sounded happy about it." She hung up. Danny's finances did not survive discovery well. Patricia's team traced the credit union account, nearly $9,000 he'd quietly moved over 4 months. Under Illinois dissipation rules, since that money was moved in clear anticipation of a divorce he hadn't disclosed, the court could, and did, count that full amount back into the marital estate, then award me a larger share to offset it. His January bonus? It vested 3 weeks after I filed, still fully part of the marital estate. His plan to protect it by waiting had backfired in a way his lawyer later admitted in a mediation session was unfortunate timing. It wasn't unfortunate, it was Tuesday. Here's the part people always ask me about. Lauren was still living in my basement when all of this happened, rent-free. Her name wasn't on the lease of anything, because there was no lease. It was family generosity, extended to someone who I now understood had been quietly building a future with my husband under my own roof. The day the temporary court order came through, granting me exclusive use of the home, I did something I'd never done before in my life. I asked her to leave. Not screamed, not cried. I sat her down at the kitchen table, the same table where she used to eat breakfast every morning while I rushed off to work so she and Danny could have the house to themselves, apparently, and I told her she had 30 days.
"Where am I supposed to go, Rachel? I don't have money for a deposit right now." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "It stopped being my problem the night I heard you two dividing up my future like it was a garage sale." She moved in with our mother, my mother, who by then had heard the whole story, and who, for the first time in her Lauren's entire adult life, did not immediately take her side.
I gave birth to my daughter Emma in late April at Edward Hospital, the same hospital where I'd been born myself. Danny wasn't in the room. By then, our divorce was finalized. He has visitation rights, court-ordered, supervised for the first several months per the judge's ruling, given the circumstances of the case and concerns raised during proceedings about his conduct and reliability. The final settlement: I kept the house, I kept the majority of our joint savings, adjusted upward for his dissipation of assets. Child support was calculated off his full income, including the January bonus he thought he'd protected. Danny moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near Route 88. Lauren, last I heard, was still living with our mother, working part-time at a salon, still hoping, according to my mom, that things with Danny would work out eventually once the dust settles. Chuckle. The dust settled about a year later. Danny started seeing someone new, someone he met at, of all places, a Home Depot, buying paint for his new apartment. Lauren was not invited to that relationship. I'm sitting in my kitchen as I record this, in this same house, at the same table where I told my sister to leave. Emma is 14 months old now, asleep upstairs in the room Danny once planned to renovate for a future that no longer includes him. People ask me if I regret filing first, if I regret not confronting him that night, screaming, throwing things, giving him the reaction he probably expected. I don't, because the version of me that stayed quiet for 6 weeks, that smiled through Thanksgiving, that let them believe they were still ahead of me, that version of me is the reason my daughter has a house with no mortgage stress, no split custody chaos, and a mother who never once had to beg for what was already hers. They thought I'd be devastated. Instead, I became the one thing they never planned for: prepared. Mrs. Stark here again. If there's one thing I want you to take from Rachel's story, it's this. Sometimes the strongest response to betrayal isn't the loudest one. It's the quiet, patient one nobody sees coming until it's already done. So, tell me in the comments, if you were in Rachel's position, would you have filed first like she did, or would you have confronted them both that same night? I read every single comment, so let me know. If this story hit you right in the chest, hit subscribe because Mrs. Stark has a lot more of these coming your way. I'll see you in the next one.